Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Callum, joined here by Paul today. And today we're going through the very exciting task of talking about should Joel Robles sign for Everton. How we're going to stretch this out, I don't know. We're going to find a way, though. I mean, let's just start it off, Paul. Do you think we should sign Joel Robles?
Should we sign Joel Robles? Ideally, no. And number two goalies, for me, I prefer number two goalies to be young. Guys who have come through the academy or maybe signed when they were, 17, 18, 19, and have spent time with the youth, yeah, with the youth teams, and they've got out and had a loan or so. I'm not really a fan of having older goalkeepers. Maybe as a number three, if you're going to have three goalies in your senior squad, but for me, a number two goalie should be I think Liverpool have got the right idea. They've got that. I can't say his name. He's Irish, isn't he? Keller or someone like that. It should be a number two goalie um, who's been at the club for maybe a while. If they're not coming through as a kid, then they're coming through when they're still very, very young for a goalkeeper in the teens. They spend a year or so with maybe the under 21s. Then they go out on loans, maybe League One or the Championship, see if they can, test the metal a little bit, see if they can handle men's football. And if they can, you bring them back and then you keep them around the first team for maybe a year or two in the cup competitions. But going back to Joe Robles in particular, I was not really a fan of Joel Robles when he was here the first time. I know he had some good moments here and there, and he had little runs of form where he looked okay, but he was a goalkeeper for me who was just too up and down. And what's he done since he left Everton? He went back to Spain for a couple of years where he wasn't number one either. I think he went to, I can't remember who he went to. Was it Real Hispanas or something like that? It was a team that played in green. Real
Betis,
Betis,
yeah.
Betis. Yeah, I can picture the kit, but he didn't really pull up any trees out there. He came back to the Premier League with Leeds, and the only reason he got a little run in the Leeds team at the end of last year was because their other number one goalie, the French guy, was diabolical and just needed to come out. We need to put someone else in the net. So Joe Robles' career post Everton hasn't been a roaring success. So if we didn't offer him a new deal and released him 5 years ago, I don't, or whenever it was, I don't really see the point in bringing him back now. If it's as a number two, then okay, you can stomach it. Ideally, we won't ever have to see him play for us. But for me, I'd prefer that. I think it's just blocking off a potential gateway for someone else. I'd rather that number two spot went to someone else who we're grooming and we have long term plans for, rather than just, oh yeah, we know he's available. He'll come in and be a little good part of the group. Let's just have him. So I just think it's counterproductive, really long term. But it's
Yeah.
only number two goalie. I can live with it.
Do you think it's one of those things where it's a real sign of just how crap our academy's been, though? Because, I think there's one lad who's done okay at like Chester, I think, but I don't even know what level Chester are. Wait a minute. Then
Oh,
here we
then
go. We've
I think
got,
they're non-league, aren't they?
yeah, like in our under 21s, we have that Laban kid who was meant to be decent, and now God knows what's happened away. The
He's
geezer
been
we
here
signed from
for ages.
Carlisle, and then there's this Jack Barrett kid, which I think we've just offered a new contract to. But besides that, you know,
What happened to Joe Virginia?
he's
I've
out
not
on
heard
loan.
anything about him. I know did he go to Sporting Lisbon?
I think
Was
he
it?
did, but they didn't make it permanent. Then he went to a Dutch league club and has been god awful, I think.
What's he done out there? Joe Virginia 2, 3 years ago looked like he was ready to kind of make that step up from youth football to the serious leagues.
Yeah, the
You know,
Ancelotti season was it?
yeah, the lockdown season. He came in. Olsen got injured and Pickford got injured, so he came in and had a little 2, 3 game spell. But he looked pretty good. Just not sure what's happened to him. He was obviously part of one of Unsworth's league winning sides, wasn't he? So he was brought in by Marco Silva. We got him from Arsenal. I think it was Silva was familiar with him. He poached him from Arsenal's academy, from Arsenal's youth team. Brought him up to Everton with sort of the idea of he groom him for the long term. He stayed at the club even after Silva went. Unsworth clearly liked him, and Unsworth found a place for him in the youth teams. Angelotti kept him around as well, let him train with the first team, and then obviously he had that little 2, 3 game spell in the team, as I've just mentioned, and then he went out on loan, and I think, right, he's got to Sporting Lisbon. Hopefully, he'll get 30 games under his belt. He'll play a bit of European football as well, and if he does well out there, then maybe we've got a long term number one on our hands here. So if anything ever happens to Pickford, if we sell him or he gets a long-term injury, we'll be all right. And I don't know what's happened to him since then. It's like his career just fell off a cliff. He's been out of sight, out of mind.
I'm getting the Dutch League table up here. He played for the team that finished second to rock bottom.
There's no appetite at the club, Everton, to sort of keep him around and potentially groom him for anything, because when he got loaned to Sporting by Rafa Benitez, when he came in, they had an option to buy him, which they didn't take. So it wasn't just go to loan to Portugal for a year, play for a big club out there, see if you can do something, and we'll look at it again next summer. We basically just fobbed him off and sent him away somewhere, hoping that he'd play all right and we could cash in on him a little bit, which didn't work out for whatever reason. So clearly he's not part of Everton's thinking then, and he's certainly won't be part of it now. But going back to just why do we just have no goalkeepers on the books who are any good, apart from Jordan Pickford? It's just again a failure of recruitment, and nearly all of Everton's problems over the last 5-6 years all come back to just how woeful the recruitment has been. I don't know, did Brand sign us any goalkeepers while he was here? I know. We
just signed youth goalkeepers, didn't we? We signed that
Where are they, though?
Laban. They're all in the youth teams, and then we've got 3 goalkeepers who are meant to be like highly rated in the youth team, and then none of them play. Is Tyra's the one who's meant to be good? Harry Tyra is the one I keep hearing about, and he's just won he's won Summit at Chester for being one of the better goalkeepers in the league. But again, now it's
non-league. What's that? Do you know what I mean?
He is 21. No, I guess that is 18, 19 for a goalkeeper, really.
No, come on, let's be serious. If he's 21 and he's playing non-league football, even as a goalkeeper, I'm sure there's 1 or 2 examples somewhere scattered around history somewhere. But if you're in your 20s and you're playing non-league, then clearly it's because your parent club don't think you're cut out for the Premier League, is it?
I don't know why, because it is with goalkeepers. It's a weird one because I think they do get a bit leeway because they do naturally careers last a little bit longer.
The point I'm going back to is that I was trying to make. If you're 20, 21 and you're at a Premier League club and they're looking at you thinking, right, in 5 or 6 years, you could be in our first team. We just want to loan you out for a little bit to get you some experience. Surely sending them to the National League is not what the club would have in mind. Surely they'd want to look to get him in maybe League One somewhere, or send them to a foreign league, maybe over to Holland, like Virginia's gone. I know some of them go over to places like Norway and Belgium. Chelsea have got that link, haven't they? They send a lot of their young players out there for Tesse or something like that. But what my point is, clearly the club doesn't have any long-term plans for Harry Tyler if they're just loaning him out to a non-league team for the season. Well, it just sounds like they came in, said, Chancellor Am said, yeah, have you got any goalkeepers you can loan us? And we've gone, yeah, go on, you can have him. Harry, do you want to go play for Chester? It's down the road. You don't have to move or anything like that. Do you want to go there for the season rather than just being in the academy and playing once every 2 weeks? And he's gone, yeah, go ahead, I'll fancy that.
Yeah, because the thing with our academy as well is we don't have a single goalkeeper who's like young. You know what I mean? Like you'd expect usually there might be one of them who's about 18, maybe like that. No, it's 22, 21, and then Laban's 20, but
it goes back to recruitment again. They don't sign young players with the idea of, all right, they're not coming into the first team now, but we're not just dropping them into the academy and just letting them rot there for 3 or 4 years.
It's what it feels like. It still feels very much like, do you remember the old David Unsworth approach where instead of signing promising young players, we'd sign young players who have a bit more experience just so we could win that Premier League too?
It was all the clubs and all the clubs that are successful, and it's something Everton haven't done, and it's a big part why Everton haven't even got close to being successful, I don't think, is because they don't think long term. Okay, everything's just sort of, it seems like it's off the cuff or done on a whim. So Marcel Brands came and signed, and when he was at Virginia, was signed clearly by Marco Silva, wasn't he? Brands, who did he bring in? A couple of goalkeepers who've just been dropped in the youth team. Got to remember, Brands came into the club in the summer of 2018, was it? That's 5 years ago this summer, and he's been gone, about a year, roughly. So Brands was here for over 3 years. He was here 3.5 years, wasn't it? And players we signed 3.5, 4 years ago are still absolutely nowhere. We don't know who they are unless you go on the Wikipedia and search the Everton squad, like I assume you've just done. So they're still knocking around in the academy or getting loans out to non-league somewhere, or in the case of Virginia, just getting loans out to these little sort of mediocre clubs around Europe and they've got the option to buy you. So hoping we can make a little bit of money. There's no player who we look at and you think, right, we absolutely believe in him. We're going to keep him here for a year. Then he's going to go here for a year. And he's going to come back and he's going to be in and around the first team. It's all sort of, we'll sign them and we'll just kind of see how they get on. And if it doesn't, and if they don't work out, if it doesn't pan out the way we want it to, or whatever, then we didn't spend a lot of money. It's not the end of the world. But it's just frustrating because we've just been making the same mistake over and over and over again, trying the same approach, thinking this next goalie we sign or this next 18-year-old we sign, this will be the one where it all pans out for us. I don't know whether it's just bad scouting or whether it's just they're going to the wrong people. They're just getting recommended by, agents like Kia, whatever he's called, Mashiri's mate, plays a hand in it. But going back to Joel Robles, because that's who we were talking about, if he comes back as number 2, I could stomach it. Because he's not an absolutely appalling goalkeeper. He's not, a goalkeeper who's you just look at and you think, oh my God, he's going to get laughed at on Twitter every week.
The Leeds defence made him look worse than he actually is as well.
He is, yeah. But he wasn't good enough to be the Everton number 1 5 years ago. He wasn't good. He wasn't even deemed good enough to be the Everton number 2 4 or 5 years ago. Whenever it was he released, because he was released, I think, by Ronald Koeman in his.
Yeah, it'd have been the season Ronald got sacked, wasn't
it? Yeah, Koeman's second season, yeah. He had 1 year here under Koeman, and when Koeman first came in, he brought Stecklenberg with him, who he put in as number 1, didn't he? And then I think...
Was Robles not a goalkeeper in the Europa League when we got pumped every game?
I can't remember.
That season in the Europa League where Leon, Atalanta, and whoever else it was just battered us.
He might have been, but he certainly wasn't here post Sam Allardyce, post Steve Walsh, that sort of era of the club. He was definitely gone by the time Marco Silva and my brands rocked up, and that was 2-3 years ago in itself, wasn't it?
2018.
So he wasn't sold either. His contract expired and he wasn't offered a new one. He was signed in the summer of 2013, and I think it ran out in the summer of 2018.
Yeah,
so he wasn't offered a new deal then to even be our number 2. Who knows if he was, and he said, no, I want to be... Maybe he was offered a new deal, but he wasn't happy to be number 2 because he knew Pickford was coming in, and he thought, no, I'll just go back to Spain and try my chances there. But the fact is, Everton didn't put any great value in him 5 years ago, and it's just sad that we've fallen away so badly that we're basically having to ask him if he'll come back now. And if he's willing to come back and be number 2 now, or he wasn't willing to come back and be number 2 5 years ago, what does that really say about him as well? Does that suggest that his career's not worked out anywhere and he just wants a nice comfy gig now, go back to a club that he knows where he can just won't have any hassle?
Yeah, like
number 2 is a very... Sorry, I'll wrap it up now and let you... Number 2s are very hard to find because they're all either old and washed up, or they're very, very young and unproven, and it's a massive gamble to play them, or they're just absolutely crap and no one else wants them. It's very hard. There's not many teams, I can't think of one off the top of my head, who've got a bona fide, really good number 2. Maybe Liverpool with that.
Man United technically, but Dean Henderson doesn't want to be a number 2.
Competence, yeah. Yeah, they've got a competent number 2, and Liverpool have got that Irish kid who's looked
good. Who's Newcastle's number 2? Dubravka.
Yeah.
Newcastle. The top teams do. Like that German lad who plays for City's good. But that's what I mean. Only the top teams are able to even bring in... Like that Ortega, I think, did pretty good in the Bundesliga. His contract expired and Man City just went, you can win trophies sitting on the bench. And even Man City played him, to be fair.
Unless you're a team that's winning trophies consistently, or you're a team that can just offer them a stupid wage, you're not going to get a really good number 2 because they'll just go and play. They'll go and take less money, probably to go be number 1 somewhere else. But why can't we just have a young kid who's coming up, who everyone's sort of at the club at least? I don't expect supporters to be raving over these kids if you don't watch the academy, but why can't we have a number 2 who's part of the long-term planning, who you think, right, if we sell our number 1 in the next 2 years, 3 years, we're confident by then this lad who's number 2 now could step up and be number 1.
Not even that.
Even it doesn't always work out. Leicester have tried it with Danny Ward, I know, but why has it always got to be just some old fella who's kind of got nowhere else to go? Or in this case, it's got to be a player who's been here before, who is kind of just kicking around, hoping that someone will throw him a bone.
Yeah, the thing is with me is it's like, even if the young lad was going to be number 3, have we got any are these lads training with the first team consistently? Have we got stuff like that? And it's one of those where we will wrap up now because we don't want a video that's too long about Joel Robles, but it's a thing where it's an indictment of the problem, really. You know, it's a big highlight of, you know, surely one of these we should have had something in place for this ready. You know, because my thing is with not having a good number two is as well is it's a good thing Pickford doesn't want to leave, isn't it? Because every other team had looked at Pickford leaving and went, they're going to come in. If, for example, let's say we were linked with the Spanish guy from Brighton because they don't want to start him anymore. He's better than playing for us, but let's say we get linked with him. That's Brighton immediately going, that's 20 million added on to what we originally wanted because Pickford's gone. And they've got absolutely no one to step in. At least teams who have a competent number two. So, for example, Newcastle set, let's say Nick Pope goes in some hypothetical universe and they got to sign a goalkeeper. They are going to get absolutely rinsed on the market because clubs will look and go, well, they've got Dubravka, they're not desperate. But we with everywhere, this isn't just goalkeeper, have got ourselves in positions now where we have to overpay for players or have in the past because there's been no concise plan. And it's just an example of that again.
No joins up thinking, no strategy, no contingency plans, no nothing. It's just everything, as I said at the beginning. It's just like everything's done off the cuff and everything's done on a whim. And we'll confront that problem when it rears its head and it's unavoidable type thing. Because, yeah, what happens if Pickford breaks his leg in pre-season? What if someone comes in and just offers us, 60, 70 million for Pickford and we just can't refuse it? And then we're going to have to spend another 50, 60 million on another goalkeeper, as you just said, in an inflated market, someone who's surely not as good. We can't just think, right, we'll put this number two in goal for January and see how he gets on. It's Everton all over, isn't it? Having to go cap and hand back to someone who we let go 5 years ago.
We'll wrap up there. You know, if you did enjoy watching the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter.
If you come back, Joel, if you come back, Joel, fair enough. I'll root for you, but I don't really think that there's much to say other than just shake your head. But sorry, I interrupted you then. Please subscribe, everyone.
Yeah. Like I said, please like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, and we'll see you all for the next video. Bye, everyone.